Hello. So my name's Judith Walker and I'm Head of Libraries and Customer Service, and I'm here today to talk to you about our library vision, our library service vision. And I've broken this down into two sections. One is the vision for the whole service, and then more specifically about how that impacts on Highgate and how we can translate that into the feasibility that is being conducted at the moment. Can everybody? I was just about to say, can you obviously can't hear me because yeah, I'll try and speak up for you.
Yes.
Okay. So there's a statement there that's it's our first thoughts about what the library service should contain and the fact that it's vibrant, modern, inspiring. That's what we're aiming to do, to deliver a library service for today and into the future, and to ensure that we can reflect the needs of our communities and their changing needs. And I've put some photographs in here because I thought it would be useful. This isn't to say this is what Highgate or any other library is going to look like. It's just to say that actually these are some examples of new libraries in other authorities. So, the vision. So we want to ensure that we are able to reflect modern needs and anticipate future innovation, but also not to be blasé about the past and the rich heritage and the history that our library services bring to community. And that's what libraries do. You know,
so you're going to bulldoze the heritage?
I've worked in libraries. Thank you. I'm a strong believer in libraries celebrate the past, live in the present, and plan for the future. So we want to be able to use technology better. That's not just about putting self-service machines in, although that would be part of our plan, but it's also how can we use technology to ensure that we can deliver services that people want to use. And again, it's about the wider context of that.
Councillor Hopper talked about the disposal of Highgate Library, the disposal of us in South
Okay, sir.
George, please be quiet, because we will come to points like that when people are allowed to speak on the back, but please let them get their points out first.
I really am going to say this for the final time as well. Please stop interrupting so that we can get through, because at the moment we've done a lot of context setting. I think people want to get to the meat of what's exactly going to happen. So please let us get there rather than interrupting. I won't ask again. I will ask someone to remove if necessary, which is absolutely the last thing I want to do.
So technology, use technology better in the way that people want to use technology. Reading and literacy, really, really important. I don't need to tell you that, you get that. And again, digital access, enhancing digital literacy. We still, even in current day, we still have people that want our support to get online. And we want to be able to provide that better and in an improved way than we do currently, that we're able to do currently on the current site. And we want to explore grant funding to develop that in the way that Andy specified. The Society of Chief Librarians universal offers allow us to tap into funding streams, so it allows us to kind of target our services in a way that will enable us to apply for funding and ensure that the service reflects the needs of the community. It's not a one-size-fits-all. It really is genuinely about what the community needs and trying to meet those needs in the best way that we can. So some context about Highgate itself. I think you can all read that, and I know that libraries are about quality as well as footfall, but it has to be said that of all our 9 libraries, 6 of those are branch libraries, that the footfall in Highgate is lower, it's the lowest of all our libraries. We don't think that's a true reflection of why communities want, why Highgate in particular is so. It's clear that you're passionate about the library because you're here. So we want to encourage more people to use the library, and we firmly believe that working this proposal through and looking at feasibility will allow us to explore that further. And that's reflected in the fact that Jackson's Lane have got footfall over 3,800 per week, as opposed to ours, which is just over 1,000. So what we want to do is to work really closely with them to encourage those users and the footfall to tap into those elements of the community. Increase the user experience and create a library that's sustainable for the future. That's another pretty picture. So, collaboration. We've talked a lot in various meetings. I recognise some faces here. I've been at some of the public meetings before. So we've talked a lot about what this collaboration would allow us to do and why we can do it better together on one site. This is a list of things that this is not what we intend to do or have started to plan. It's to give you a flavour of the sorts of things we would be exploring with Jackson's Lane on one site. So, the Art Award, that's an award for young people that they work through the summer. They work in libraries on the Summer Reading Challenge with us. They also work in Jackson's Lane. It's a way of coming together to improve and increase the numbers and the experience that those young people have. Next year, it's 250 years of the circus. It's the anniversary. Libraries actually nationally are looking to do a push on that. We can do that with Jackson's Lane because they have a strong theme, circus theme running through that. Coffee and computers.
We want our library.
What?
This section here, and this is sharing with you the kinds of things that we expect to be able to collaborate with Jackson's Lane on, and being on one site will enable us to do that more effectively.
Looks like ridiculous going to the library in Jackson's Lane instead of the
George, if you carry on, you need to leave, okay? Because it's disrespectful to everyone who's made the effort to come here.
Could you
think.
pull the curtain across so we could read the sun bleaching?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, don't worry about it.
Yes, it's just on the screen, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, walking out the sunshine. I'll carry on.
It's over there, I think,
Time.
Jason.
So things like intergenerational projects, we do those in libraries already. Jackson's Lane have also running similar programs.
Yeah, that's
We'd
good.
really like to develop that and look at the creative elements of those projects, whether that's reminiscence work on a website, whether it's producing books or displays. That's something that we can work on together. Clearly, we've already talked about funding base, so there's no need to kind of go into that, but there's an opportunity to submit for funding to allow us to enhance the offer in both areas. Book festival, it would be amazing to do a book festival in the building. We could run not just author events, we could have performances, people could be doing creative writing. We can use technology around that as well. One of the concepts, it's not on here, but one of the things that I'd really like to explore is using technology to be creative, whether that's story writing or it's making music or watching films. You can do that in the setting now with modern technology because you can do, you can have a silent film, so you can have the headphones on and actually the noise isn't interrupting other people. So they're the kinds of things. It's not exhaustive. And I'm sure that there are lots of other things that given the opportunity, we would be able to come together on. And that's an example actually of a centre where they're using technology to be creative, to draw, to create artwork and project it on the screens. So, Highgate Library vision for the future, and these are some of the things that we are looking for as part of the feasibility to ensure that we've got these kind of ticked off and they're part of the plan, part of the feasibility study. So lots of you have talked about wanting bright, welcome, opening spaces that are comfortable, that are vibrant. So that's one of the things that we want to include. We want to have a more zoned social space. So currently, the current library, we're limited by the constraints of the building. We've got a nice flexible space at the front, the adult section at the back is much more rigid, and we've got that kind of the adults children's area. What we would be doing in this space, because this is an opportunity to design it from scratch, which is why it's so great to see so many of you here today. So to design it around the needs of the community, to build that flexibility in from the beginning, rather than adapting the space. I'd like to see more emphasis on young people. You all know, because I'm sure you use the library and you see that there's very little for young people currently. We'd like to offer a space where they can study, where they can relax, where they can be more creative.
I'll come.
It's not true, Judith.
We can debate that.
Some of the feedback I've had is that
When did you pick that feedback up? Because the questionnaires were not picked up last week.
So
when
just again, I think the challenge about youth engagement with the current library is one where I think there are clearly different opinions. Okay. So they'll definitely get aired. Sure. Do you want to just respond to that quick question and then we just move on?
Sure. Yeah. So we know that young people are a hard to reach group in libraries nationally.
So that's nationally, that's not Highgate or Harringay, is it? That's national. Sorry, I just need to respond to that.
We absolutely will come to that. But what we can't.
What do you mean by young people?
No, I'm not. So I'm not going to allow these questions to be answered because I don't think this is We're very close to finishing the presentation. So this back and forth can happen slightly later. Why don't you keep going, and then we'll define what young people means and their engagement in the library and
okay. I will pick that up afterwards, because clearly you feel strongly about that. So some of the other things that are the things that we would like to consider is we know that the children's provision is really popular, so building on that. There's a piece of technology which is all about immersive storytelling, which is pretty amazing. There's a technology. It's possible to write a story, design the pictures, project it, and then actually read the story within that space. So that would be an amazing thing to be able to do. The media zone I've talked about already. So it's kind of looking at how we can do events and activities across with Jackson's Lane around coding, so teaching coding, making our own music and doing that in conjunction with the youth board, for instance, that Jackson Lane have got set up. Current status. So I think this is probably the next to last slide. So current status, just to run through what I think you already know, and colleagues, please step in if I miss anything on this one. So Jackson's Lane approached the council, Highgate Council, in April with an opportunity. We, as a council, said yes, we would like to explore this further because, for all the reasons that we've already stated, that Andy stated in national and local context. As you know, there's a feasibility study underway currently, and Katie Marks from the Citizen Design Bureau is doing that. And some of you who have been at the other meetings will have seen her initial spatial drawings, and they're actually available at the library to see. So they're there for everybody to see. This project needs to enhance both the library and the Jackson's Lane facility. We're really clear about that. No decision, as Jason said right at the beginning of the meeting, no decision will be made until the feasibility is completed and that's reported back through to Cabinet. And we want the community to engage with the emerging plans. So that's why we're here tonight. That's why the plans are in the library. That's why the questionnaires there, and I'll follow up on that point to make sure they've been collected. So that's why we're here tonight. So, in summary, there are financial challenges that we've already spoken about. We know that libraries are closing across the country. Highgate is committed to its library service, including Highgate, but investment is limited. Highgate Library is well loved. but not well used currently.
It is well used.
No,
Lies with your lying figures.
no decision has been taken yet.
It has been taken. It was taken.
George!
Yeah. I'm sorry, sir, but can you?
Let him stay.
I really don't want to, but there has to be a level of respect.
Can you please carry on? Who doesn't have to read it? We can read it.
This is the last slide, so and then we're open to questions. So, but just really wanted to reiterate that no decision has been taken. It will go back to Cabinet, and that's dependent on the feasibility report that shows it addresses these key points that we've been talking about and will continue to talk about.
Okay. I've got a
Do you
question.
want to leave this? Right. So I can see a first batch of hands. So what I'll try and do is take maybe 3 or 4 in one go. Then I'll hand it over to officers, and I'll keep going. If I don't get you in the first or second round, please do signal again. So I'll go 1, 2. The gentleman at the back 3, and then Mark 4. Is that okay? So we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4. So do you want to ask your
Councillor Arthur,
questions?
sorry. I'm just going to send this notebook around with a pen, so if you want us to send you the minutes and details, please put your email addresses in capital letters so I can...
Put the minutes on the website?
Yes, absolutely, sir. But put your details in this book that's going to go around, please, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm Tamara Gingic. I'm co-chair. Do you hear me? Okay. Hello. I'm Tamara Gingic. I am co-chair of Friends of Highgate Library. First of all, I've just had an email from someone who's disabled, who is unable to get to this location. So the location of this meeting is inappropriate for anyone coming on public transport from either the library or Jackson's Lane. So I've had a very upset email just while we've sat here from a lady who's in a wheelchair who cannot get here. So that's a first point. I think this was a poor choice of location for people to talk about Jackson's Lane and Highgate Library. So Jackson's Lane have not yet put up the website with revised proposals that the public are supposed to engage with. On June the 20th, Haringey said the deadline for the feasibility report is the end of July, early August. On the 5th of July, Jackson's Lane said that the deadline for public responses to the plans is the end of July. So 1, why has Haringey Council set to such rush deadlines? 2, why is there such a rush to get the feasibility report done? And 3, given the revised plans are just up, or are they? Are they up? No, they're not up. They're not even up. Will you now revise the dates to give the public more time to study the proposals and submit comments/responses? It is particularly difficult to engage with library users, as you well know, now that it is the school holidays for some of the schools and lots of people are away.
Good questions there. So 1, why did we pick Highgate Wood School to hold this? And then secondly, around the feasibility report, when's it going to come out? Can it be delayed so that more people can engage with the content of the report? I don't know which one of you wants to...
So 1 around the location. It's evident just by the numbers that are here, this couldn't be held in the library.
But it could have been held in Jackson's Lane if it's got so much space.
Jackson's Lane, I'm informed, was booked up. We tried to find the closest location that could cater for potentially up to 200 people. And it's evident from the numbers that are here tonight. So our best endeavours have been to try and find a location to deal with a significant number of people. And we are where we are tonight for that reason.
I'll forward you the email, Andy, from this very distressed
I
public member
appreciate
who
that.
cannot
I
get here and
appreciate
is
that.
emailing me really upset. I'll forward it to you.
I think one helpful commitment might be that the person that you've been in contact with, or indeed anyone else that other people may know who are unable to get here tonight, if they are able to contact us, or you're able to pass on information of them to us, and I think a commitment of officers, or indeed us as councillors, should be to have conversations with those people so they are up to speed with where we are and feel as though they can then comment on the things as well. So hopefully that kind of addresses some of the accessibility issue. Do you want to go to the feasibility report and timescale?
Okay, so we have
highlighted this in previous discussions at the scrutiny meeting, but to be absolutely clear, the reason why things need to progress quickly in terms of the feasibility study is, if you like, a back timing issue. So the award that Jackson's Lane have had to date is for money for them to work up the proposal to make their final bid for the refurbishment of Jackson's Lane Arts Centre. That needs to be, because that's what the Arts Council require, a very detailed and very fully costed proposal, and proposals of that nature, with all the work that is required from architects, etc., take an extremely long time to develop. So although it seems like a very compressed lead time for the feasibility study, the reason for that is so that we can establish sooner rather than later whether a Jackson's Lane with a library in, or whether a Jackson's Lane without a library in, is the Jackson's Lane proposal that Jackson's Lane will be working up to take to the Arts Council, and then they need the remainder of that period to develop the detailed designs. So that's why it is very, very compressed. We recognise it is tight. Now, Jackson's Lane are the people that need to determine their timetable in relation to the Arts Council bid. So we can't guarantee that we can do anything, but we can go back to speak to them and say the timetables have become very compressed, so is there anything we can do about that? But as I say, it is their bid, so I can't say for certain.
You can't have 10 days over the summer holidays for a feasibility response.
Let us speak to Jackson's Lane after this. I do recognise what you're saying.
So one thing I would say, and this is what, going back to why aren't Jackson's Lane here, I think there is an understandable feeling that the needs of Jackson's Lane are bouncing decisions ahead of the library. And so I think certainly on at a political level, what we need to...
Excuse me.
I will come to you, because you're next on the list. What I think we need to be really clear about is that certainly no decision can be taken on whether the move should happen until it goes to Cabinet, and Cabinet at the earliest would be September, most likely October. So in terms of the opportunity for people to scrutinise their plans and then to hold councillors, the Cabinet, to account, there's certainly no decision that will be taken in August whilst people are away, because that's just not how the machinery of it works.
Just to respond. The questionnaires ran out over a week ago. The questionnaires haven't been picked up. The feasibility, I thought this would be the great reveal. I was expecting the
revised proposals,
and then what? We've got 10 days.
Right.
It's very passive.
So,
that's why people are upset, Jason.
And that's where I agree with you. I think the challenge, and I think it's a well-made one, is that 10 days when we're about to go into the summer break isn't enough for people to engage with the proposals and then feel as though their voice will be heard.
Well, not if the questionnaires ran out and have been left at the
and
library.
I think that's a fair challenge, and one that I think
the point
officers...
is that you can't do a feasibility study, and a large proportion of the people who actually want to do this feasibility study on, for example, young people, are not here because it's the summer break, and a lot of them have already levelled, for example, Tuscany.
Yeah, so I think it's...
So it's not actually fit for purpose. I think you're sort of...
I think we'll come to that, but I did say, with respect, I did outline who would come next. I think it was this lady. If you've got questions, I will come back to you. So you
Can I just tell people who I am, so you know which perspective I'm coming from? My name's Natasha. I'm a former equalities advisor and lawyer, and I'm a member of, an officer of Friends of Highgate Library. Some of you will have seen our lovely little leaflets and have come to the meeting because of our leaflets saying we want to save Highgate Library. Now, I have to give you some information, and then I'm going to ask a question, which you notice they didn't answer when Tamara asked, which is what Jackson's Lane and Highgate Council have said, first of all, so we're really clear about the truth, is Katie Marks did some original drawings which were just brief and not costed, and they're in the library for you to look at. When we made complaints about those drawings, she said very properly, we will revise the proposals, and new, more detailed proposals that you, the public, can comment on will be online in the week commencing the 3rd of July 2017. I've been in email contact with her, and if anyone wants to check, I brought copies of her emails with me, but they keep saying we want to get these revised proposals online so people can comment by the end of July. But Highgate Council is stopping us from putting them online. I have it in writing. The second point is this. none of us can comment properly till we see the revised proposals, but it's Haringey Council that have put a stop on Katie Marks putting them on the website. They're ready to go. The next point you need to understand is this, and this is really important procedurally, and it tells you the lies that Haringey Council are prepared to go to with all of us as members of the public. There is no deadline by the Arts Council, and I have emails from the Arts Council which I have brought with me today to show anybody who doesn't believe me. But trust me, I'm a lawyer, I wouldn't tell you unless I had it in black and white. And you know why? In 2016, the Jackson's Lane put a bid for a really brilliant renovated Jackson's Lane for just over £2 million without a relocated library. The Arts Council has just said at the end of June they have got their bid. They've given £2.26 million to Jackson's Lane, which is brilliant news. And could they work the bid from a stage 1 REBA, that's an architect's design, to a stage 3 REBA proposal, which is a fully costed and properly articulated proposal. It does not include a relocated library. But in a secret deal done between Haringey Council and Jackson's Lane, they said, why don't you relocate a library and put in a revised bid? But I want to read you the email from the Arts Council. Jackson's Lane has just been given, in addition to a guaranteed 2.26 million, if they put their proposal without the library into a proper feasibility report, a stage 3 REBA, they have said they have 18 months in which to do that report, more detailed report. Second, because I asked these questions, second, when I said, but does this report allow for a complete revision to put something entirely new into it for a different use, because the funding is for circus, cabaret and art space, they said, no, you'd have to probably put a new proposal in and start again. Well, of course that makes sense to me. I'm just a member of the public. What do I know? But that makes sense to me. So when they tell you that there is some enormous urgent haste to get this all done by the beginning of August because of the Arts Council's deadlines, it's a lie. The email from the Arts Council, anyone who wants to see it, we can see it, we'll publish it on our Friends of Highgate Library website. Only came in today, this morning. So unfortunately, we haven't put it on our website yet. So the second lie is there is no read for this rush. But third of all, you can't give a reasoned, articulated response to proposals, revised proposals you haven't yet seen. So that's the third lie. And they notice they didn't answer Tamara's question about when is the website going to be up. The next point is this. They have been saying we refuse to hold a public consultation. You know why? Because a public consultation run by a council has legal requirements of procedural fairness. So that's why Jackson's Lane and the council have done a secret deal to only have engagement sessions, note my speech marks, not a public consultation, because if they hold a public consultation and the public say we don't want a relocated library, they're stuffed legally, because I personally will take a judicial review against them and our organisation. And finally, and this is my last point, do not believe the lies that Haringey Council tell you, that we can't respond to a proposal that isn't there. We can't. Jackson's Lane have actually said in a meeting with us, the only people who can properly respond to our consultation are architects, because there are architectural designs. So guess what our group did? We got 3 architects on board to say they help us give the feedback. But where are the proposals? So you can please take it from me that this is a sham. The reason they've called this meeting is because of our protests about selling off Highgate Library. And by the way, this is my last point, and then I can shut up and sit down. Andrew Garfunkel, the trustee of Jackson's Lane, thank you, Adam Garfield told us in a meeting on the 22nd of June that the reason this relocated library is attractive to Jackson's Lane is the Arts Council has given funding, in the first stage approval, in principle approval it's called, for 2.26 million. Highgate Council, and to be fair, Clay Cover gave this as a concession on the 20th of June when we did a deputation to Council. And she said, we will match fund and give you 1 million. But Adam says, but that will give us, we'll also fundraise, they said, that will give us 4 million. But he said the really exciting thing about a relocated library is that Highgate Council have promised us we will get 7 million if we go with a relocated library, because Highgate Council has said they will give the proceeds of the sale of the existing Highgate Library to Jackson's Lane to improve the relocated library. If you don't believe me, hang on. If you don't believe me, please read the attached minutes to the June Council committee meetings and also the replies to a call-in by Lib Dem councillors. It's all on the council website. We will do links to those documents over the next 2 or 3 days. We've been really busy, as you can see, ferreting out information for this meeting. We will give you links to all those documents. So if you don't believe me, everything is in writing. We'll put links on our website to it. But don't be bamboozled by the rubbish they tell you, because everything that they say is wrong. Library usage has gone down in Highgate because they've closed the library on Saturdays due to shortages of staff. Of course library usage falls down. It also goes down in the summer holidays because seasonal.
I'm sorry to cut off, but I do
so
know.
Don't believe their lies. Please support our campaign to save Highgate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just flagging that. I think it's the gentleman at the back that I said I would. No, not just yet, because there were lots of statements in there. So I just wanted you to know, I will come to you next, and then to Mark Afford. Because there are lots of statements in there, lots of strong things, including accusations of lying from council officers. No. So I'm about to respond to one thing. Some strong accusations in there. One thing I can say very firmly, which doesn't require officers as the finance lead for the council, is that there has been no commitment by the council to give £7 million to Jackson's Lane.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. Don't
sorry. It sounds. Sorry if I misunderstood.
They committed to give the proceeds of the sale of the existing Highgate Library to Jackson's Lane, which is currently estimated between 2.6 million and 3 million. And that's how Adam Garfunkel got the difference between the 4 million that they can raise on the current bid without a relocated library. If they have a relocated library, they will get 2.6 to 3 million extra because of the sale of Highgate Library.
Okay.
I personally think the library is worth much more than 3
million. That makes sense. So that's absolutely fair. So I think what we have said as part of the feasibility, not part of the feasibility, but part of the cabinet report that was discussed at cabinet on June the 20th, is that we've given an in-principle decision to support Jackson's Lane, that if there was going to be a relocation based on the feasibility, that part of that relocation would have to be funded by the sale of the existing library. Now, it sounded like in total terms that would equate to £7 million, which I was trying to reassure people, we are not in any way committing that amount. But yes, in order to be able to give a capital receipt of £1 million, plus any additional funds to support relocation, because the council is suffering the cuts that it is, we would have to fund that through the sale of the existing site. So that's just to answer that specific issue. There are a number of claims in there. I wonder, Andy and Vicky, can you take them in turn around the timelines again, feasibility report, what's been committed, what's not. Can you just take us through?
Yes, so I've just now seen, and apologies, I should have picked it up earlier, the email from Natasha with reference to. My name is
Vicky, do you wanna-
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Vicky Clark. I'm the Assistant Director at Highgate for Economic Development and Growth, and the reason I'm here to answer questions are those which principally relate to some of the property aspects of the proposal. In terms of the Arts Council bid, I've been just checking through my emails, and I can see the email that is referred to from the Arts Council. And it does say potentially that if a substantially revised bid with very different outcomes were to go forward from Jackson's Lane, that they may need to resubmit a stage 1 proposal. Yes, so there is obviously there is a question as to how substantial the difference would be in the outcomes with a library as without. There will obviously be a library element, but clearly a lot of the core things that Jackson's Lane are delivering will also still be being delivered. So it is for the Arts Council, in dialogue with other interested parties, I think, to evaluate whether the change of the library would be significant enough for the deadline of the bid to change, or indeed whether the deadline still needs to move, or whether a revised stage 1 bid could be submitted and still fit with the original Arts Council timetable. That is still all for consideration, and apologies that I was...
18 months to do
Yes,
it.
they have got 18 months to do it, that's right. But it does take a long time that's what I said at the beginning, 18 months, but it takes a long time to work up proposals from stage 1 to stage 3. It is a very time-consuming process, and so they need to know. Well, the purpose of the feasibility exercise is to give them an understanding of whether it is likely. Yes, and I have already. Yeah, excuse me a minute.
Just a question.
I have already acknowledged that I agree with you that it is very tight, and we will be endeavouring to change that. And I think Jason has said that as well, that we accept that isn't okay. So that's I've set out to you why the timetable is as it is. The other thing to highlight is that the potential to incorporate the library has already been flagged with the Arts Council. So this would not be a new proposal arriving on their desk from scratch. It's been flagged, and they are interested in it because, as Andy highlighted at the beginning, this cross-cultural collaboration between arts centres and libraries is something that they are very interested in, and they are assuming responsibility for future investment in libraries. So they are aware of it, and they are interested in it as a project concept. So they're not going to. They are unlikely to throw up their hands in horror when they receive this new bid and say, cast this out and start again. So that's the situation as we understand it currently with reference to the Arts Council bid. I reiterate, we understand that you feel there's not enough time to respond, and we will reflect that back. It is the case that this going from stage 1 to stage 3 is a very lengthy process and can genuinely take that 18-month period is not unusual for that kind of process.
Okay. So I'd like to, given there are some concessions about the truth of what you're saying, I think, again, accusations of lying, I think they're trying to be, officers and I, trying to be
Actually, they're
transparent.
being deliberately misleading, so call it
But,
what you want.
okay, we'll have to disagree on that point. And did you want to pick up some of the other points?
Only around the website. So I believe there's a commitment that the website is actually live. So and also that Highgate Council is not controlling Jackson's Lane. We can't stop them going live with a website.
Oh, you're in bed with
That's it's their website, it's their proposal. They approached us. We're seeking to work with them.
So Andy,
it's
why
our
does
understanding
Natasha have
that
it
that
in
is live.
Why does Natasha have it in an email that I've seen in writing from the architect saying that it's Haringey who have stalled that going live?
Yeah, so that's really unfortunate,
Why?
and I'm
It's
glad
more
to
than
hear that because we will
unfortunate.
take that up. So that's the first time I've heard that, and we will take that matter up because that clearly is not the case.
So when are we
But
going to-
I guess the key point is.
If you have an email saying that it is.
I don't have an email.
Well, I've just shown
Yeah,
you.
yeah, and I've not seen that
So-
You
email.
can't say that it's clearly not the case because
No,
you
well,
don't know the case.
I've just iterated. I know the case from our.
So just to step in, I think what
Are you saying Jackson?
Maria, I don't think it's appropriate just to shout.
Just
We're just Maria.
So is he saying
Maria. Again, just as I said, I'm just as I said to him, it's not appropriate to shout out. I'm going to say the same to you. I think what Andy is saying, if I could put words in your mouth, is that he doesn't agree with what they're saying. That's very different from saying they're lying. They seem to think that it's the council that are holding things up. I think what Andy's saying quite clearly is he doesn't believe that it's the council that is holding things up. However, what is clear is that the website is now live, and I think as
When
part...
did it go live?
I can't answer.
I'm not sure, but I think what is... But I think what the commitment should be made...
It wasn't live at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
And I'm responding as I understand things today as well. I think what we should say, though, is that ultimately people want to see what's on the website and be confident that detail is going to go onto that website. And I think one of the practical actions we can take away is that when people give their details, that in a response to them, maybe we should make sure that they have access to that website, that their link is in there, so that people can go and know that some of the questions that have been raised are being addressed or not being addressed on that website. Can I go to that gentleman at the back, because he's been waiting for a bit.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm slightly anxious about speaking after some of the points that have been made recently. I work in the health sector, and I'm very conscious of the cuts that have been made to local government for delivering public health services. So the first thing I want to say is that I applaud your commitment to the library service in the context of really quite extraordinary cuts to public services more generally. And I think we should acknowledge that, first of all. Second, well, you can heckle me as well if you like, I don't mind, that's fine. Second, I'm very sad that in this discussion we're pitting Jackson's Lane against the library. I've lived in this area now for 20 years. My daughter used both the library and Jackson's Lane and had enormous pleasure in many of the ways you set out in both of those. They're both fantastic resources. And I feel that we shouldn't be afraid of change. The question is, what kind of change is that going to be? Now, I appreciate the comment that was made by the previous speaker about the plans that are in the library have been changed, but I just want to focus on those for a moment because they offer 4 very different visions for the future, which should affect our collective judgment. The first option seems to me a step backwards. It's the same space, it's being offered but low ceilings, pretty cramped area. And the Cathedral of Books option is really quite incredible, fantastic opportunity. So what I want to ask you is, how is that choice going to be made between those 4 options? One option could offer significant, and I mean significant, upgrades and advantages for library services. The first option could actually take us backwards and really provide a disservice to the young people in this region. So let's not be afraid of change, but let's scrutinise that change very carefully to make sure it's delivering for our local community.
Thank you for that. And then it was Mark was the final. I will take the second round of questions, but I did point to those 4, and then I'll let you.
Mark Hubbard, Crouch and Neighbour Forum. Just to pick up on what the previous speaker said, I can continue with that. It's simply this. A lot of people have been talking about timetables and timelines. And what I'd like to know is whether or not you can pin down when the decisions are going to be made, who will be making the decisions, and how. I think that's what the previous speaker was saying. How are the decisions going to be made? Clearly, the architect put a number of kind of space analyses on the initial brief. So where do they go from here? Jackson's Lane presumably has to make up their mind whether or not it's feasible for them to do it. But also the council then has to decide whether or not it's feasible for the library to go into those spaces. So simply that. When, who and what are those decisions going to be?
So I might pick up that last question and then hand it over to others. So I would say that ultimately it has to be Cabinet who take any final decision. And as I said earlier, the earliest that it could practically come to Cabinet is October. Now, I think one of the challenges with what's happened to date, and I've said it before but I'll say it again, is that the process at the moment has felt for many people very rushed, that they haven't had as much information as they would like, and certainly when the feasibility report, when that's produced in August or the end of this month, people are keen to be able to see what's in that and what does that mean for the library. So in my view, I think there has to be some form of engagement again after August with the community, with library users, to say, this is what has emerged from the feasibility report, here's some of the ideas. So that might, to your point about the spectrum of something which might feel like a backward step to something which actually feels quite exciting and positive, the opportunity for people to see what's in the feasibility report and then give feedback to us feels like an important thing to happen. And then, as I say, in terms of...
Is that the timetable Jackson's Lane are working towards?
So being really transparent about it, I think having spoken to Jackson's Lane, to James, their chief executive, earlier, I think they're feeling a bit of pressure to go quicker than that. And one of the things that I said to him was that ultimately there has to be some level of democratic accountability where it goes to cabinet. Those proposals are then in the public domain before it's decided. So I think there is a tension there, and that's why when we were talking about what do we put on slides and whether we have specific dates, we were conscious about, do we actually want to put a timeline in place that then we can't necessarily deliver, because Jackson's Lane's expectations are slightly different to where we are. So that's just being honest about it. But certainly from a political level, I think it has to be a decision in October at the earliest, which means that it has to come back to the community and for the opportunity to look at the range of options and what's been decided. Is there anything you wanted to...
There's some questions around that, Jason.
Well, there was a question around space and how's that in terms of choice?
Yeah, do you want to pick that up? And then I know there are follow-up questions, so we can pick up on that.
Definitely. So just coming back to your point about how will those decisions be made, and Jason's talks about the kind of political element of it from a service point of view. Absolutely, the Cathedral of Books does look amazing, doesn't it? And the double height and so on. So this is about the structure.
Jackson's Lane won't want because it really loses all of Jackson's Lane.
So that's what I was just about to come on to.
Yes, thank you. I was hoping that.
So, what I was about to come on to was, this is about us working together to make sure that neither service is compromised and is enhanced. So I don't know what that looks like at this stage, but
So you
clearly,
haven't looked at the website either, Judith, that's just gone online between 4 o'clock and now, just to be clear. You haven't seen those drawings
What
either.
I'm talking about is the drawings that were presented before
The
that are in the
original
library.
drawings. Okay, I've had an architect give me an analysis back of all of
Tam, with
those,
respect,
just to point that out.
because you did have the opportunity to speak at length, and I just want to make sure that she answers those questions and then the subsequent questions.
She knows more about this than you people.
I do know more than you about this, Jason. So
No, that's why it's not about me speaking, it's about officers having the opportunity.
So it was only just to say.
Boring everybody to death.
Come on.
There's no need to be disrespectful. Yeah, sorry, carry on, Jude.
Thank you. So it was only to say that we will need to work on that together in partnership, so and to make sure that the resolution, if there is one, meets the needs of both services and enhances them, not to the detriment of the other.
I saw there were a few hands which I think were just in light of this. Can I just ask for people, hands up, who want to talk about that specific conversation or have different points that they want to make? If there are any specific follow-ups on that conversation, does anyone want to? Yeah.
I think actually, originally I thought I was going to say this a little later, but I think the point that I wanted to make, the question that I had, is very, very relevant to the space. That even the Cathedral of Books does not address the fact that Highgate Library has beautiful gardens front and back, which are used by, and there is no way to put that into Jackson's Lane. It does not have the outdoor space to have that green space. That green space is important, both given the high pollution in the area and also, though, for users of the library, particularly autistic children and their families and people of that sort for whom the all that natural light pouring in through the windows from the green space outside, the view of the trees, the ability to go out into the garden gives a space for a calm space in which to focus, in which to learn, in which to improve themselves. This actually goes back to priority one of every child has a person and others have the best start in life. And some of the others helping everyone to reach their full potential, healthier and happier lives. So it actually goes back to some of the focuses. And this is, what are you going to do? What are you going to answer to people the mothers of the children? We have a very good nationally well-known autistic school in the area and that sort of thing. All these people who use that library specifically because that space is so good for people on that autistic spectrum, as well as a lot of other users with mental health problems and stress and
So that's a really good. So that's a very fair question because I don't think the. Oh yeah, no, jump in.
I've actually got a postgraduate certificate in autism. I'm talking with autism, and that is the exact point I wanted to make. It's not important to me that you have a library that isn't as popular as other libraries. What's important to me is who is using that library. What are the needs of that community? How many people that go to that library are on the autism spectrum? How many people have got disabilities? How many people have got special educational needs? Because if you are a parent with a child with an autism diagnosis, you're going to choose a library that is very tranquil and very calm and is conducive to your child's anxiety levels. If you take a child with ASD with autism into a library that is crowded with low ceiling, that child is not going to cope there for 5 minutes, and that parent will probably never visit again. The space that this library offers, the gardens, the tranquil atmosphere, is very, very supportive to children that have special educational needs. And I think that your survey needs to go back and look precisely at who is using this library and how does it impact on their lives individually.
It's impact, not numbers.
And what are you doing to make sure that you are meeting their needs so that they can have a good quality of life?
I think it's a very I'll give I guess my view as a politician, and then I think it's officers as heading up the library service to say in terms of the vision that they outlined, how they see it. I guess for me, absolutely, if we were to make any change, we'd have to think about what the impact is on current users, and for some people it might be very detrimental, and that might be a reason to say don't do it. And I'd re-emphasise again, and you might say I'm lying or being disingenuous, but I am trying to be relatively agnostic and objective and see what comes out of the feasibility report before pinning my views one way or the other. I think what I would say though is that we spent the start talking about the economic climate of the council, and I do think personally, this is just my view, that numbers, though not the be-all and end-all, are important.
And I think 200 people a day nearly.
But I'm amazed by the numbers. Yeah, you do realise compared to Jackson's Lane, which is a bigger building, having 4,000, having over 1,100 a week, is on 6 days as opposed to 7 days, is actually more per meeting.
I guess that there are clearly some people.
So that's not true.
I think there are some people in the room who, fair enough, would argue that the library is working well at the moment and is well used, and that's a fair challenge.
No, but Jason, if you would listen to, if you replied more than once in 3 months to an email, we can offer you our vision for the library.
With respect, so I just wanted to bring off some. I do think the challenge is that, and people disagree, but there are certain groups that aren't necessarily using the library as well as we would like to see. And so just to finish the final sentence before then officers come in, is that I think the question for us has to be, the question for us has to be, right, with respect, the question, just to address with the final question, I think the question for me, certainly politically, is, does a move enable us to provide the types of services that you're talking about to very vulnerable people and reach out to wider groups? And if it doesn't, do we then have a clear vision and plan for for how, in a time of reducing budgets, we can
Yeah, we
ensure
do.
that the existing library is able to develop. And if the feasibility report says that that can't happen, and actually we look at it and we say, here's a great plan for how we can make the existing building work, I think it's our responsibility as councillors to support that alternative.
Fantastic. Let's go. I've got that vision.
Sorry.
No. So I think we're not doing a fee. We haven't got architecture.
Why not? Why not? It's cheaper. We can give you ideas to use.
I'm gonna have to. That's a fair question. That's a fair question, which is the feasibility report. I know, I'm trying. Yeah, absolutely. I just want to make sure. So what I think is important is first we pick up that question on vulnerable users, and then secondly, why haven't we got a feasibility report for the current library? So why don't I let Andy pick those up?
Can I just come back? There was a very, very valid question about the green space, which I think that's where we've kind of gone off track, and that was the key question. So we recognise that over the last probably 2 weeks, 3 weeks, there has been correspondence, there has been concerns, there's been emails that have come in about that green space, and we've looked at that. As recent as this week, we have had discussions. I can't promise anything here because I can't talk on behalf of Jackson's Lane, but I know they are exploring the possibilities of what they could create in terms of green space as well. So can't answer more on that. So I'm reiterating the discussion that we've had with
I think Andy was only saying a conversation that has just happened. Nothing more, nothing less. So, with respect, I think Andy was just saying a conversation that has happened. Nothing more than that.
So I think it's important to know.
No. We're not.
Yes, I do. And be respectful. I'm sorry.
Respect.
George, shut up.
We've got questions. Can we ask questions specifically, please?
That's what
It's just ignore you.
We're all done with this gobbledygook which we get from these people. They're just going to go away.
At the moment, Andy can't respond because he's talking. So we will wait.
Jason, could I ask you a question? I've had my hand up for quite a while.
We've been over here and you haven't asked it.
Just very briefly.
Jason? No.
Jason?
Okay, she's had her hand up for ages.
I recognise, and I absolutely recognise that. But Andy hadn't finished his answer, so I would just like Andy to finish saying what he was saying, and then we can take another round of questions.
Let's hear it, Andy.
So, Andy, do you want to? Judith, do you want to?
Okay, so it was just regarding the vulnerable, the points that you made and you made about the. Sorry, I can't see you there. About the vulnerable, absolutely echo what Councillor Arthur said about. We need to consider that.
Can't hear you.
We need to consider that, and absolutely our library spaces need to be fit for those vulnerable children. I understand what you're saying.
Stop. Because you're limiting the ability for people to hear the answer and then ask questions because you're intervening. So again, stop. Judith, please carry on.
Thank you. I'll try and project a bit more. So only to say that it's a really, really valid and important point, and it's one that I will be feeding into when I'm speaking to Jackson's Lane and how we can provide that. The garden aspect is kind of something that Andy's already spoken about, but certainly that quiet, tranquil space where vulnerable children, autistic children can feel safe. I absolutely understand that point.
Yes, people hate change.
Sure.
like that.
Okay.
So this gentleman here has had his hand up, then I'll come to this lady,
Just wanna ask
and then I'll come to you.
Just
Yeah.
very briefly about the independence of the feasibility study and who will be conducting that.
If you ask, I can
I
repeat
just had a
it.
question there, just in relation to the feasibility study and the independence of it, and who will be undertaking that feasibility study.
Yeah, so that's probably a question better to officers in terms of the mechanics of the feasibility study and its independence from, I guess, the council. Is that what you said? Yeah. Okay.
Who's writing it?
Well, the feasibility study is essentially several exercises together which are about whether it makes sense to move the library into Jackson's Lane. And there are broadly three aspects to that. There's firstly, straightforwardly, can the space that we need to re-provide for the library be accommodated in Jackson's Lane in a way that serves the library so it doesn't produce a cramped and uncomfortable library, and also allows Jackson's Lane to carry on effectively providing the core services they're provided. So that's, if you like, a space engineering exercise, and that is principally being led by Katie Marks, who is the architect that Jackson's Lane have commissioned, and that is not because she is on Jackson's Lane side, but because she is the person who has spent a long time understanding the Jackson's Lane building and what can be done with it. And she is the person that has been commissioned by them to lead their bid to the Arts Council, which is what will pay for the refurbishments to Jackson's Lane, whether they include or don't include a library. Then the other two aspects to it are essentially about the space aspect links to then a functionality aspect. So it's, can we make sure that all the very good points that you have all raised today about the way that you value the library, and also the ambitious vision points about that Judith and Andy have made, and some people in the room have made about a future library, can practically be accommodated in Jackson's Lane. So does the move to Jackson's Lane allow us to invest money and think about the space in a different way that allows us to do more with the library? And then the third point is pertains back to the issue we talked about previously with the financial climate, and that's simply, do the sums for everybody involved stack up properly? So there are costs. There are
comprehensible.
Okay, I actually think that was really clear, and I'm gonna pick up the pace just because we've only got 20 minutes, and I want to get as many questions in as we can.
We've got 35 minutes on that clock.
So my question relates to the feasibility study as well as space. So I'd like to ask, how much will the Jackson's Lane feasibility report cost? And why is the council paying for this rather than exploring the public's ideas about how to support the library remaining where it is and increasing its usage in its current location, which is what the local people want? And isn't it isn't it true that the money given to Jackson's Lane for the feasibility study, could be used instead, to pick up on that lady's point, for a stair lift to make the upstairs of the library more accessible and increase its usage?
Okay, so we've got a question about feasibility. Why are we paying it? And then not only that, but why aren't we looking at how we improve the existing service, and whether that money could have been used better in improving the existing library? Do you want to pick that up?
So
This gentleman's had his hand
Yeah,
up
and I've
for
already
ages.
told him I'm going to come to him next, so do that.
So why are we paying it? We've gone through how this has come about. So we were approached in April. Okay, this is a good idea, irrespective of what people think. It'd be remiss of us not to explore the opportunities, given the funding issues that we have. It has potential to bring £3 or £4 million into the borough, and particularly into Highgate, through Jackson's Lane and through the library.
But you're going to get that anyway.
Therefore, to enable that, a feasibility study needs to be conducted. So we've committed, as part of the match, that we would fund that feasibility with Jackson's Lane.
This gentleman here, and then we'll go for...
So what bit didn't I answer? Sorry.
Why won't you do one for our library?
So...
okay, yeah.
Right, so...
Why does money you can go to a stair lift?
Right, so...
And why didn't you ask the public?
Okay,
Are you paying?
So all fair challenges.
Yeah, all very fair. So there was no plans for any improvements to Highgate Library as it is in terms of one of our branch libraries. Our commitment this year and into next year is around Hornsey, significant investment in there, further improvements at Wood Green, and minor improvements into the branch libraries around its IT. As I go back to my first point, that actually this opportunity brings about significant investment into the borough, and therefore that's why we thought this is the right thing to do, to understand what is the art of the possible, what could be created here, and that's why we've funded that. There would be significantly more funding required to go into Highgate, and then if we were to do that, why have we done Highgate and not any one of the other 5 branch libraries?
But how much have you paid for that? How much is it, Andy? You haven't answered that question.
Off the top of my head, don't quote me exactly, but I think it's 23,000 off the top of my head. For its entirety, that's it.
No, that's not what he said.
Okay.
So, this gentleman here.
Saying that you're destroying our library.
No, George.
Can I just say something? I'm interested in the granularity of the plan that they're putting forward, because I work with schools and I've taught for 23, 25 years in schools, and I am a specialist in immersive technologies and in computing and coding.
Yeah.
All children in schools get coding. They can't even get coding teachers in to schools. There's a big problem with that at the moment.
Yeah.
The immersive technologies you're talking about don't exist, and if they do, they're proprietarial, and it's a too early an idea to put forward at the moment.
Yeah.
If where's the research for this? You're saying, oh, it's a cool idea, let's get down with the kids and do that. Yeah. They actually don't want that. Why don't you ask them and find out? Because you could have an open network in the existing library, you could have augmented realities on their own devices which they bring, or you could hire them out. There's all sorts of alternative provision you could make within that's much, much cheaper than the route you're going down, which will cost thousands to specialists who will sell you a white elephant, an IT white elephant. Where's the research?
Just to come back on the point of the immersive story room, they have one in, there's a new centre called The Word in South Shields, and they have one there.
If that's only one, where's the wider research behind this?
What I said in the context of that was not these are the things we are going to do. What I said was these are examples of the things that we would explore.
Yeah. Well, I can give you 20 counter-examples for the existing building.
Which is brilliant. Yeah. So I'll have a conversation with you separately, if that's all right, because that would be really helpful.
Rather than ask the people who use the library what they might want when they've got suggestions.
Yeah, I think that's such a really good point, and that's something that we haven't really got to tonight yet, which I think is a shame. Is what are those alternative
I've been emailing
ideas?
you every week, Jason.
Come
on, I've been emailing everyone. I felt like the stalker of Haringey.
That's 100%.
Can't work his
this gentleman here.
Oh, really? Suppose best stand up. Hi, my name is Richard Marshall. I'm just a local resident. Yeah. I guess I've got 2 questions. First is, if you move the library from a council-controlled building into a commercial operation at Jackson's Lane, how do you guarantee that it will exist in the future? Because arts operations notoriously need to be funded by the Arts Council. Arts Council funding is notoriously difficult to guarantee. So if Jackson's Lane goes down, how do you guarantee the future of the library? That's the first question. And the second question, is it possible to go back to the vision for Highgate Library slide? Sure. Yeah? Who's got the clicker? Do I have it? No. Here we go.
The other way? The other way?
Yeah, that one. Okay. There's something I fundamentally don't understand. And I look down the vision, and I notice there's a few things that I would expect to see that are missing. One is the word books. Especially when the preferred design seems to be a cathedral for books. But anyway, but the real point is, I don't understand why you're following this up. In that what I'm hearing is Jackson's Lane have approached the council. the council are, obviously considering it, and by the sounds of it, willing to presumably sell the library and pass a load of funding to Jackson's Lane to make it happen. But why? So, Andy, you're saying investment into the community. Where's it coming from? So there seems to be a bit of this vision which is missing, which is the site. What happens to the site? What's the vision for the site? Where does this money actually flow into the black box from? And I'd like to understand that as well. So those are the two questions.
Yeah, absolutely, Vicky. Do you want to?
So the first one, in terms of safeguarding the library should Jackson's Lane run out of money, that is something that has already been considered as being factored into the way we would draw this up. So the first thing to be clear on is Jackson's Lane is currently operating in a council-owned building, although Jackson's Lane is a separate enterprise. It leases it from the council. So the Jackson's Lane property is one of the properties that we're currently developing something called a community asset transfer policy, which is about community groups being able to acquire long leases on buildings which they currently operate and which are council owned. And Jackson's Lane is one of the buildings which may be eligible for a community asset transfer. Now, at the point that were we to write a community asset transfer, what we would do is we would remain the freeholders of the building, and we would write safeguards into that policy as to what would happen to the library in the event that something were to happen to Jackson's Lane so that it no longer functioned. We haven't written the lease yet, but the kind of things that we could put into the lease are things like if Jackson's Lane folded, then the freehold of the leasehold of the building, bearing in mind we would still be retaining the freehold anyway, so we would be the ultimate owners of the building, but Jackson's Lane, the organisation, would have a long lease. If they folded, that lease would fold up and the building would revert to the council, so we would still have the building in order to operate the library. So we have considered that and thought about it. Now, your second question...
Oh, sorry, that's
a council policy, which is the policy I was just describing about where we've got community groups currently running and occupying council-owned buildings. It's obviously, the bill for looking after those buildings is expensive. Some community organisations feel they could do more with those buildings, invest in them and make them pay their way in a different way. And the community asset transfer policy has just been passed by the Cabinet, and that's about allowing community groups where they want to and they think they can make it work to approach us and have a discussion about whether they could get a long lease on their building. But Jackson's Lane is just one example of a community organisation that may be able to do that. Slightly different for Jackson's Lane because it's a listed building and therefore there are rules and different constraints around what can happen, but that's one possibility. Then in terms of where's the money coming from and what's going to happen to the building, the Highgate Library building issue. Now Jason stated already that the way the money flows is that it will be ultimately, although obviously we would not sell the library building until the Jackson's Lane new library facility was ready and up and running and ready to operate. One of the things we need to assure ourselves from the feasibility study is that the receipt from the library building would cover any capital outlay that was required to put a new library into Jackson's Lane, so that the two at least balance out. We can't go at the moment into numbers, but the model for the sale of the Highgate Library building that we've got at the moment, so what we're basing our calculations on is for the library to be sold, but for the building itself to be retained. So the current model is not, and I really emphasise this, is not modelled on the library building being razed to the ground. It's based on a purchaser taking that library building and probably, well, certainly adapting it for another use because nobody else would be running a library, but not knocking it down.
Library in it already.
Okay.
I should be really clear that is. Can I just? Sorry, Jason. Can I just add?
Very quickly. Yeah.
I should be
Just very quickly, so she can just finish. Yeah.
I should be absolutely clear that is not 100%. That cannot be at this stage 100% cast iron guarantee that nothing will happen. But the building is locally listed. So there will be a strong presumption in terms of saving the building. As I say, we are not modelling on a receipt, which is the kind of receipt which would go from a building being sold for demolition. We are modelling it on the assumption that it's sold and retained.
You're aiming to do it while everybody's on holiday.
I will come to you, so don't worry. I'm conscious, however, even though I will come to you both, I've taken a handful of male questioners, so I'm going to go with you if that's okay, just so we get a...
Fine, I'm Sarah, I know from the room. I live in Cholmondeley Crescent, which is very near the library, and I'm actually here for a number...
Sorry, but can you speak up?
I'm here for a number of my neighbors and also for my family. My neighbor, who couldn't be here today because she's looking after her autistic son, said exactly what the SEN teacher who's now left said, which is that this is the only library and it's an incredibly special space, quite apart from everything else. Her older daughter, non-autistic, used it to revise and is now 11 and continues to use it. I moved here 3.5 years ago because there is this incredible cultural corner, street corner, in this beautiful part of London where suddenly you've got a library. It may not be the most perfect library in the world. It might be underfunded. I wouldn't say it's underused. And across the street, there is a completely different, equally wonderful, not competing cultural building called Jackson's Lane. And when I got the leaflet yesterday through my door that said that there was this meeting, and I looked at it in horror. I thought it was almost a joke. You were going to sell the library and put it in Jackson's Lane, which is already heaving and full. The reason I can tell you this with certainty is because I'm there every single Saturday for 3 hours while my daughter, who's 9 and uses both the library and Jackson's Lane equally and happily, is in classes there. That place is completely full. It is overused. My daughter, when I said, oh, they're going to close the library and sell it and move it into Jackson's Lane, she had burst into tears. My husband said, that's just a joke. I've given up. I know it sounds frivolous, but I was supposed to take her to, of all things, Matilda tonight, because it was because of a special event. And she said, don't go, I'll go with Daddy, and you come to the meeting, because she was so upset. And frankly, just to take on your point about all of these special media centers, I've come to live in Highgate from Palo Alto, California, which is the absolute epicenter of everything media. And I can tell you for a fact that their libraries are not that different from our library. They're better funded because their taxpayers and their local communities are allowed to actually give money to the libraries, and they keep giving it to books because everybody has a computer. But they don't have this amazing community resource where you can have clubs and all sorts of things where old people can be with young people. And I will tell you that, of course, the library isn't as good as it should be. And of course, Jackson's Lane needs to be refurbished. But I find it almost tragic that we're sitting here in a space we all love both. And I don't want to make a choice. And I, like the doctor, who seems to have left, I agree that we should be looking forward to new things. I think they should both be new, and I know we are in a funding crisis, but we have a committed community who would be happy to help fund, among other things, who would be happy to do all of the things, I will add books, but all of the things that are on this vision for the future, in both spaces, because maybe in the performance spaces of Jackson's Lane, you could have some interesting media centers. I don't think you really need to combine library and circus, but it's not my decision. But, you know, these are not things that need to compete, and that one doesn't have to go for the other.
Very eloquently put. I wouldn't challenge any of most of that. There's only one thing I will challenge, which is that at a point you said the council has decided to or is going to, and I can only reiterate again. I think we felt it was incumbent on us, if an opportunity presents itself, to say, let's look at it. And I think it's absolutely right for the council, and I will stand by this 100% to say, if Jackson's Lane come to us and they say we've got an idea, it would be wrong to say, given the funding constraints as well, we're not going to look at it. However, I think it's absolutely right as well for us to say it's a well-loved library. How can we think about, if there's funding available, even if there's not, how can we use the community's assets to improve the existing library versus what are the opportunities that may come from working with Jackson's
Well, let's
Lane.
have a vote on it now.
Well,
Let's have a vote on it now.
George, we
We
won't.
won't keep the library in
George, we won't take a vote on it now because I don't think at the moment, given that we don't even have a report on it, that we don't have enough information to make that decision.